Welcome to Architecture Topics, the podcast where we explore the stories, ideas, and designs that shape the world around us. I'm your host, Liam Karen, and today we're heading to Sydney, Australia in the late 1950s. On the edge of Sydney Harbour stands a building that needs no introduction, the Sydney Opera House. Its soaring white shells have become synonymous with Australia itself and a masterpiece of modern architecture. But what many don't realize is that the Sydney Opera House was nearly impossible to build. Its architect, Jørn Utzon, had the vision. But what followed was a battle against physics, politics, and time. Utzon's design defied conventions. It was unlike anything seen before. A structure that looked more like a sculpture than a building. But for years, no one knew how to build it. And then, when engineers finally cracked the code, the project faced an even greater challenge, a political war that forced Utzon to walk away from his own creation. The Sydney Opera House is a story of innovation and ambition, but also of conflict, loss, and redemption. Let's go back to where it all began. In the early 1950s, Sydney was booming. It was Australia's cultural and economic capital, but it lacked something essential to rival other great cities, a world-class venue for performing arts. The city wanted an opera house, one that would not only serve as a home for music, theater, and dance, but also put Sydney on the world stage. So in 1955, the New South Wales government launched an international competition to design this landmark. The chosen location was Bennelong Point, a small peninsula jutting into Sydney Harbour. The brief called for a structure that could house both a grand concert hall and an opera theatre. But beyond that, architects had creative freedom. A total of 233 designs from 32 countries flooded in. Some were sleek and modern, others were conventional. But one submission stood apart, and that was the entry from Jørn Utzon, a relatively unknown Danish architect. Utzon's design was radical. Instead of a traditional opera house, he imagined a series of towering, shell-like forms rising from the water, more organic than architectural, like sails billowing in the wind. His sketches captured something poetic, something deeply connected to Sydney's maritime identity. Yet at first, his proposal was almost discarded. The selection jury struggled to see how such an ambitious concept could be realized. But one juror, the legendary American architect Eero Saarinen, saw something no one else did. Pulling Utzon's entry from the reject pile, he declared it the most visionary design of the competition. His conviction swayed the rest of the jury, and in 1957, Jørn Utzon was named the winner. For Utzon, this was a career-defining moment. He just won one of the most prestigious design competitions of his time. But there was one small problem. No one knew how to build the design he had envisioned. The problem lay in the roof. Those striking curved shells, which were the very heart of Utzon's design, seemed impossible to build. Traditional engineering methods relied on predictable geometries, straight beams, flat surfaces, and simple curves. But Utzon's design demanded something different. A series of massive, free-form concrete shells that had no clear precedent in construction. For years, Utzon and his team struggled. They experimented with different curvatures, explored new materials, and tested various formwork techniques. Nothing seemed to work. The design was beautiful on paper, but in reality, it was an engineering nightmare. And so the project stalled. Then, in 1961, Utzon found the breakthrough that changed everything. Instead of treating each shell as a unique shape, he reimagined them as segments of a single, perfect sphere. All of the opera house's roof shells, no matter their size or angle, could be derived from a sphere with a 75-meter radius. This discovery unlocked a new approach to the house's construction: modular prefabrication. Rather than casting each shell individually in place, which had already proven an impossible task, construction crews could manufacture them off-site in sections, like pieces of a puzzle. With this breakthrough, the construction of the Opera House could finally move forward. The impossible had become possible. The sails of Sydney's skyline had found their structure. But just when the technical challenges were being solved, a different kind of battle was brewing. One that had nothing to do with engineering. Politics and power struggles would soon overshadow Utzon's greatest achievement. Construction was finally well underway, but all those years of experimentation and redesigning meant that even when the building was far from being completed, it was already way over budget. Originally estimated at $7 million by 1965, costs had ballooned past $60 million, and political frustration started mounting. That same year, a new government took power in New South Wales, led by Premier Robert Askin. Unlike his predecessors, Askin had little patience for the Opera House or for Jørn Utzon. He saw the project as a financial disaster, and Utzon as its root cause. Utzon, on the other hand, was an architect, not a politician. He was deeply involved in the creative and technical aspects of the project, but often clashed with government officials over finances and timelines. His reluctance to compromise, while essential to preserving his vision, only fueled tensions. And in 1966, things came to a head. The government suddenly cut off his funding, leaving him unable to pay his team. Stripped of resources and isolated from decision-making, Utzon had no choice but to resign. The news sent shockwaves through the architectural world. Protests erupted in Sydney, with many demanding his reinstatement. Fellow architects, including international figures, pleaded for his return, but the government refused. Utzon had been silenced, erased from the project he had created. Heartbroken, he left Australia and never returned. With Utzon gone, the responsibility of finishing the Sydney Opera House fell to Peter Hall, a relatively young but highly capable Australian architect. Hall didn't walk into an easy job. The structure was only partially built. Key design elements were unresolved, and the project had become a political minefield. One of the biggest challenges Hall faced was that Utzon had left behind very few detailed plans for the building's interiors. Much of his vision remained in sketches and conceptual ideas, but no finalized blueprints existed for crucial spaces, especially the main concert hall and opera theater. Without Utzon's guidance, Hall had to make pragmatic decisions, balancing aesthetics with construction feasibility and political pressure to finally complete the project. The most significant changes were made to the interior layout. Utzon had envisioned large open spaces, designed with natural materials and seamless organic forms. But Hall's team, working within the constraints of budget and engineering limitations, opted for a more conventional approach. The result was a compromise. The exterior remained true to Utzon's radical vision, but the interiors became more practical, functional, and at times disconnected from Utzon's original philosophy. Despite the compromises, works progressed, and after nearly 2 decades of construction, the Sydney Opera House was finally ready. On October 20th, 1973, it was officially opened by Queen Elizabeth II in a grand ceremony. The final cost? $102 million, a staggering increase from the original $7 million estimate. The Opera House was an immediate success and quickly stood as both a triumph and a controversy. It was hailed as one of the greatest architectural achievements of the 20th century, yet the man who had envisioned it had been cast aside. Jørn Utzon never saw his masterpiece in person. After his resignation in 1966, he refused to return to Australia. His name was absent from official plaques, and for decades, his contribution went unrecognized. But as time passed, attitudes began to change. By the 1990s, there was growing recognition that while Peter Hall and his team had completed the Opera House, it was Utzon's vision that had made it extraordinary. A new generation of architects and historians began to push for his legacy to be restored. And then, in 1999, an extraordinary event took place. The Sydney Opera House Trust reached out to Utzon, inviting him to return as a design consultant for future renovations. Now in his 80s, he still refused to travel to Sydney, but he agreed on one condition: that any modifications be made in line with his original design philosophy. And one of those first changes was the creation of the Utzon Room, a space redesigned under his direct guidance. It was the first time his ideas had been integrated back into the building since his departure. After that, more renovations followed, aiming to restore elements of his original vision for the interior spaces. Then, in 2007, the Sydney Opera House was awarded UNESCO World Heritage status, officially recognizing it as one of the greatest architectural works of the modern era. And for the first time, Utzon's name was unquestionably and permanently attached to his creation. Utzon passed away just a year later at the age of 90. Today, the Sydney Opera House is more than just a performing arts venue. It is a symbol of Australia's identity, a reminder of the power of bold design, and a testament to the idea that great architecture isn't just about aesthetics. It's about vision, persistence, and the ability to challenge convention. Utzon once described the Opera House as a gift to the people of Sydney. And looking at it today, silhouetted against the harbor, it's clear. His gift has truly stood the test of time. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to Architecture Topics. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. It helps the show grow and ensures you won't miss future deep dives into the world's most fascinating buildings. And if this episode made you think of someone who would enjoy it, share it with them. A personal recommendation is the best gift you can give us. It helps more people discover the show and keeps these stories alive. I'm Liam Karen, and I'll see you next time on Architecture Topics.